We go through the steps to install a Delta Touch Faucet, and it's a fantastic faucet, and some people say that it looks overwhelming, all the parts, but it's actually very simple. So I'm going to go through all the steps to install it, and you're only going to need a Phillips screwdriver, a couple of adjustable wrenches, and probably an adjustable pliers. And we're going to be installing this in a sink that's a top mount. So you have two choices. There's one style that on your counter the sink is dropped straight down on top, which is the one we're doing, or it's a bottom mount. So we'll go through the steps one by one. So the first step, you have supplied with the faucet a couple different types of washers, and one is for a top mount, which we're going to use. It's cushioned and it has an adhesive strip on it, and the other is for an under mount, which I'm not going to use. So we'll set that aside, and what we're going to do is this padded washer peels out of this, and then we're going to pull this tab, and it's going to expose this sticky side, and we're just going to slide it up the supply lines, and we're just going to stick this to the base of the faucet. Just like this. So that's step one if you have a top mount, very easy. Okay, so the next step is you have the nut, which we're just going to insert the bolts into it. And the bolts are actually set screws that are going to lock this nut in place. And then you have a washer that's going to go on top of this. And then this little plate here is going to go underneath the sink. So the body of the faucet itself is going to be on top of the sink, and then we're going to slide this underneath, and then we're going to tighten down this nut and washer from underneath. And I just want to show you the supply lines here. You have one that's marked red for hot and blue for cold, and they're very long. They're designed to fit, most installations, so it's nice you don't have to buy additional supply lines. Now I'm going to insert all the tubes into the center hole here in our sink, but I just want to let you know that there's a little LED light, and this has to be the front. It says Delta right here stamped on the face, and also this little light has to be in the front. So we actually have a sink that has 3 holes, but we'll cover those. If you have a choice, if you plan on getting a faucet like this, then you would want to get a sink that just has one hole in it. But since this is already here and we don't plan on changing this, we'll just put a couple cover plates here. So it's face forward, the LED is forward, and now we'll put the mounting plate underneath. Now I'm going to get underneath the sink. I'm going to put this up tight against the bottom, and then I'm going to put my washer on, and then I'm going to tighten my nut up. So before I tighten that mounting plate up totally, it has 2 holes in case you need to put these covers on. And so at the hardware store you can pick up a couple of these sink hole covers, and they just snap in place. There's also a couple different styles, but I like the style that just snaps in place like in this. Makes it just very easy to pop it in place, and that's going to cover the hole real nice. And now that these are lined up, I'll go underneath and I'll tighten that nut completely. So I snugged up the nut underneath, and then those 2 set screws, I used the Phillips screwdriver and tightened them down. And this is a good part of the installation where if you had somebody hold this square for you, it makes the installation a lot easier. So now we're going to connect this solenoid to this swivel clip, and this is designed to go into the solenoid on top and then clip onto the tubing. So we make sure that this has the wider tube on top, the smaller tube on the bottom, and we're just going to snap this in place like this, and then there's a clip that has a tab on front, and we're going to just slide this into a slot in front, and it's going to lock it in place, and that's the way we want it to look. Once you connect your solenoid underneath your sink, there's a little metal bracket on the back, and you don't want this metal bracket to touch anything underneath the sink. So just make sure that this is clear of any pipes. So there's 3 long tubes and there's 1 short tube in the center, and that's where we're going to clip the solenoid. So we're just going to push the solenoid up tight into that tube, and then we're going to close our clip over the top of it. And it needs to be over the top of it to lock it in place. So the next step, we're going to take this braided wire. There's two tubes that are smooth, and then we have this braided hose, and we're just going to put this weight over it, and then the end of this we're going to push into the bottom of the solenoid. And just push it all the way up till it locks in place. Then we're going to lock the tube in place with this clip that they provide, making sure you attach it over the top of the solenoid and the bottom of that hose that goes into the solenoid. Now we're going to take this C-shaped clip that's attached to the solenoid and we're going to clip it to the bottom of the threaded tube on the faucet. So coming out of the body of the faucet is a wire with a plug in the end, and I pulled off the protective coating on the tip of this, and I'm just going to plug it into the left side on the bottom of the solenoid. Just like that. So the battery pack, I put the 6 batteries in, and the batteries come with it, and now there's another wire that comes off of the solenoid, and we're just going to snap it into place. And you want to put this battery pack at least 2 inches away from the back of the cabinet or the side of the cabinet. And it just needs to be placed down low like that. So under our shutoff valve, we're going to put a ferrule into the valve itself, and then we're going to tighten this check valve onto the top of it. And this is where we're going to tighten our supply lines down to. And these are designed for 3/8 compression valves. So you're going to need to make sure that you have a 3/8 compression shutoff valve for your faucet, otherwise you're going to have to get an adapter. So you just set the ferrule into the valve, and then we're going to tighten the check valve by hand, and then we'll snug it up with our wrench. And now you just connect your supply line to this. So make sure that the tip that has the red side is going to your hot, and just put a nice soft loop in this. They give you a supply line that's plenty long enough, but it's not going to go straight down, so you want to put just a soft loop into it and then snug it down. So I turned both shutoff valves on, and now we want to let this run for a full minute or longer. So all you have to do is touch it to shut off, which is very cool. So now we're going to put on the sprayer assembly. And the first thing is to remove this little plastic piece which held this in place. And now we're just going to screw on the sprayer. And it just snaps in place like that. And then to turn it on and off, all you have to do is touch it, and you can touch it anywhere. You can touch it on the handle, and you can adjust it and just leave it where you want it and touch it anywhere. So if you have dirty hands while you're cooking, it's just very easy to touch on and off. Just a fantastic faucet. Very easy to put together, and it does a great job. So a couple of the features, if you touch it quickly, it's going to turn it on and off, and once it's on, you can actually hold it and move it if you need to hold it without it turning on and off. And then you can also adjust the force with your handle, and you can lock it onto your temperature and your pressure, and then you also have a spray adjustment. So just a very nice system and very easy to use.